if you're lactose intolerant, you can't watch this movie because it's got so much cheese.
Sorry, yeah, I gotta go. You guys can do this on your own now.
Nope, end it there. You agree 100%. I'm right.
Hey.
So natural.
I don't know how it works live. Like, we haven't done this before, but
Technically,
welcome.
we're not live.
Technically, we've never done it live.
We're currently recording. We're not live.
Well, we've never recorded in person.
That's true.
This is true.
So welcome, Flix fellas.
You guys are a lot
fans.
prettier in person.
I know.
That's not true.
Welcome to the fans to our first in studio Flix fellas.
Mhm.
I am your host today, Kevin, followed by my lovely friends, more lovelier now, as Joe would say. I got James here.
Hi, Kevin.
And I got Joe.
Hi, Kevin.
There we go. I love the hi, Kevin. It's like that episode of SpongeBob.
Hi, Kevin.
Yep, exactly. Today we talked about I watched it yesterday, the Netflix film Outlaw King. It is a 2018 historical action drama film about Robert the Bruce, the 14th century Scottish king, who launched a guerrilla war against the larger English army. The film largely takes place during the 3-year historical period from 1304, when Bruce decides to rebel against the rule of Edward I over Scotland, thus becoming an outlaw, up to the 1307 Battle of Loudon Hill. Outlaw King was co-written, produced, and directed by David Mackenzie, and stars Chris Pine, Aaron Taylor Johnson, Florence Pugh, Billy Howell, Sam Spruill, Tony Curran, Callan Mulvey, James Cosmo, and Stephen Delane. There were a lot of big actors that I don't really know their names, but I was like, oh, you were in Game of Thrones,
Yeah.
you were in Marvel.
Did you guys think that one girl was also from Game of Thrones and it wasn't her?
His wife?
Who?
No, not his
Like the
wife.
queen?
It was the daughter of
Daughter of the red-haired kid? The red-haired guy?
Marjorie.
yes, Marjorie. No, not the daughter of Chris
Remember
Pine.
when they go to the... Oh, I don't want to... We can't talk about spoilers right now.
It's no spoilers. It's literally the
daughter.
daughter.
The daughter of Chris Pine.
No. The girl who looked just like Ygritte from
Yes,
Game
I
of
know
Thrones.
you're talking about.
It's not her.
No, it's
I
not.
was convinced it was her.
I don't know. Who
It is
you're talking
not.
about.
She also has red hair. That's
Yeah.
true.
Oh,
And she's also a woman. That's true.
That's all the similarities you need.
Check. Okay, yeah. That's good. If it looks like shit and it smells like shit, it's probably shit, right? Oh, wait.
Jesus
That's not what I meant. That's not what I
Show
meant.
is
We
just
start strong.
done.
We start strong.
We had a good run.
I thought Joey came on strong and then Kevin just
I'm sorry. That's not. I didn't mean it like that.
Yeah.
I'm saying,
Okay.
if it looks like it and it smells like it, it is it.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're happy to be in studio for the first time
hit the table.
ever. I won't hit the table because I don't want
We're
to
gonna
do
keep
it.
hearing knock. Remember that one time you held your mic
Yeah,
during a
that's
podcast?
true. That's true.
Yeah.
Do we want to go to first reaction?
Yeah, first reactions. Let's start with the host. He's hosting this because we're
Joe's
in his
studio.
house. Joey,
My
first
casa.
reactions.
I was conflicted with this one. My very first reaction was, if you're going to start the movie off with subtitles, one, give me some sort of sound signal to let me know that I should be looking at the screen right now, because I typically will start a movie knowing that there's going to be some beginning credits where I'm not really watching. And then those last minute text messages you're sending, those last minute Instagram scrolls. And I looked up and I saw 2 titles switch over.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa, wait, hold on. The movie started already and there's no, the music didn't change. There was no sound difference. There was no, lighting change.
It was
just
silent. Yeah.
It was silent. So I was like, okay, let me just rewind, restart. Then I do it, and I'm a very slow reader.
Dude, I
no.
I know I had a note on this where I was like, I had to pause the movie multiple times because they were fucking liberal.
Yeah,
I think I
No,
went
it's
4
not-
times where I restarted because the subtitles went so fast,
Yeah.
and I just was like, what the fuck?
Look,
I feel so
we're pretty dumb.
Yeah.
But I will tell you, those were moving fast. It was not.
And it
our
wasn't
reading
just
level. They were
little
moving
things.
fast.
It wasn't like King Bruce was born this day. It was like a paragraph.
Yeah, you
And
needed to
then-
know it.
It was
yeah,
It was
and there was
pertinent
all the
information.
backstory, and then so that was my first reaction was that I was annoyed, but then I was like, oh, you know what? Kind of like this backstory. It's setting it up without having to do too much exposition, and then it's going to throw us right into the drama, the excitement.
There was.
But
Oh, I'm sorry.
I was just going to say one last thing. I didn't. it felt very weirdly paced, this whole movie.
Yeah, I agree.
Where I thought
Yeah.
like time just kind of sped up.
Yeah.
And that's been my whole issue with history classes in general, like in school, and why I never like loved social studies, is because one day you're learning about 1500 BC, and then the next day, without any warning, you're in like 500
flying
BC. It's
planes.
like, what happened for
Yeah.
1,000 years?
Yeah.
And that's
We're
what this
dropping a nuke on it.
Yeah, like-
yeah.
that's what this movie felt like, where it was just like boom, 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 like things are happening, like key moments, but there's no real like middle ground of like what day-to-day life was like.
Mhm.
There was no world building.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was another big movie recently that did what you were complaining about, where the movie just kind of like starts, like there's no music
Yeah.
and there's nothing. Do you know what movie I'm talking about?
I don't know a movie, but I agree that is a thing that happens.
Avengers Endgame.
Is it? I
We
know they
saw it in
started.
theaters together. You were there too, weren't you? Didn't you come with us?
No, we
saw
saw-
it. I don't know if I saw it
I
with
think
you
we
guys.
saw
We were in
Infinity
our
War
apartment.
together. We
No.
saw Infinity War together.
No, we didn't. It
We
was
did not?
Endgame in our apartment. That would have been 2018.
Why can't I even think about how
Or
a game
2019.
starts? I feel like it starts sad and slow.
No,
Everybody's
it
already
literally-
dead.
Everybody's already dead. In theaters, we thought it was still the previews because it just cut. It went from the previews to just
Oh.
the scene where Hawkeye is shooting his
Yeah, I
Yeah.
do remember
arrow.
that. I do
Yeah.
remember
but
that.
it just shows the arrow, and everyone's like, "Is this another?"
No, yeah,
and
it's a
they're like,
super
"Oh
cold.
fuck!"
It's
Like,
a
this is
super
the
cold
movie,
open.
which is
Yeah,
super
super,
jarring. Like
yeah.
you're 100%
Yeah.
right. It's so jarring. You're like, wait, hold on, I'm not ready to watch a movie yet.
Yeah.
Mhm.
and then it just starts.
You just see whatever his name is. Who's the actor that plays Hawkeye?
Jeremy Renner.
Yeah, you see Jeremy Renner like walk across the screen, and you're like, "Is Jeremy Renner in a new movie that's coming out?" And you're like,
Yeah.
and he's like
Wait,
in his
this-
backyard as Hawkeye, and you're like, "Oh no, this
Well,
is the movie."
The difference between this though and Endgame is that Endgame was a sequel where there was a big cliffhanger
Yeah.
from Infinity Wars,
Yeah.
Mhm.
and this is just a movie,
yeah,
Right.
this is just a historical.
a
event.
historical
Right.
event.
Yeah, I
Not
agree.
even like events. I feel like it was one
But like
event.
the less interesting part of these historical events, because Braveheart happens literally right before.
I don't know, dude. This was like
What are your first? reactions?
yeah. So I thought this movie. I loved this movie. I really did.
Okay.
I thought it was a lot of fun. I definitely think the pacing was a little strange because
Yeah.
I feel like there was kind of like a pre-climax and then like a pseudo climax at the very end. You know what I mean? I know phrasing, but like
That's what she said.
yeah.
That's
No.
not pre-cum.
Yeah.
That's just cum.
That's an inside joke. So fucking
Still funny even if you're
yeah,
not on the
yeah,
inside.
Yeah. So essentially there's a point at the end of the movie that I thought was very I gotta stop tapping the table. There was a point at the end of the movie. Yeah, I talk with my hands. There was a point at the end of the movie.
James, was there a point at the end?
There
of the
was in
movie?
fact a point at the end of the movie. I thought the action sequence at the very end of the movie felt a little unnatural and fast.
Oh, I
Um,
liked that. I liked
I-
that scene.
I know I liked the scene,
Yeah.
but I feel like it was like it came to fruition very quickly and like with almost no warning.
Yeah, sure.
But we could talk about that later. Not to get into specifics. Overall, really liked the movie. I liked that it was kind of like pseudo historically accurate. I liked kind of the issues and like the hard strung battle that was the entire movie.
Yeah.
But I liked it overall. Really liked it. First reactions.
Oh yeah, I have to
Or
do
Kevin.
first reactions.
Yeah.
Yeah. I liked it too. It wasn't like the greatest thing I've ever watched, but I didn't think it was bad. But not in the way that I said that for the last movie we watched. What did we watch last? And I literally gave that exact note that it wasn't good, it wasn't bad. Anyway,
It was Sweet Girl.
I was gonna say, why do we
Sweet Girl.
all forget
Yeah.
what movie we just
Yeah.
watched?
because it wasn't good and it wasn't bad. But yeah, this one was like a little better than that. Like I was actually enjoying watching it, and I wasn't like, ugh, like cliche. It was an action movie. It was stylized. Obviously, there's always cliches and stuff, but it wasn't like shoved down your throat kind of cliches. A couple twists caught me off guard because I didn't really know the story of Robert the Bruce. Obviously, everybody knows about William Wallace and
Yeah.
knows that story. We've seen Braveheart, like everybody's seen Braveheart.
Mel Gibson, Braveheart. Yeah.
But you don't kind of see that movie just kind of ends with like William Wallace fails and gets burned at a stake. And
Yeah.
it's just like, that's it. Like, there you go. Here was a great movie that you sat and watched for 3 hours. So now you kind of see some resolve, which is cool. So it's almost like a sequel to Braveheart.
Let me ask you about this though, because you said you didn't. Obviously, yeah, I agree. There's not major cliches. There's no major faults to this movie.
Yeah.
But let me tell you some faults that I found.
Oh boy.
Are they
save
spoilers?
that for the
Not-
spoilers?
No, it's not spoilers. It's more stylistic choices that they made.
Okay.
In the sense that, one, like I already told you, the pacing I thought was weird. And that kind of was like a little hard for me to get into right
Yeah.
off the beginning. And then 2, the outfits, the whole world, like the historical aspect of it, I think, to me, this is a timepiece. It's another timepiece movie. Game of Thrones, even though it's not historically accurate, it did just like a so much better job of like
a timepiece,
getting you involved in that timepiece. The pacing, the outfits, the way they talked. This felt a little bit too much, which maybe that's how they talked. I don't really know.
Yeah.
I don't discredit them for that.
It
but
wasn't blended.
It felt very forced
Mm-hmm.
and like cheap at the same time. Like the production value didn't seem.
Oh yeah,
great.
that's one of my first notes. It is my first note. Swords look so fake, and it was mainly that first scene.
Yeah.
I was like, man, I am in for a trip. But then it gets a little better later. But I agree. Like, obviously, it's not a Game of Thrones. It probably had a similar budget to the first season of Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
But obviously, the first season of Game of Thrones was much better. But they're also very different, right? Like, Game of Thrones is like a timepiece. It's medieval, right? But it's not like a timepiece.
It's not historically accurate.
Right. They're not trying to.
It's fantasy.
It's more
They're
fantasy.
like, okay, let's take. Like, ooh, I like this style design from this time period and this style design, so let's blend them all together. Whereas this one, it's like 1307 or whatever it is. What did they wear then? And it was like rags in Scotland. Like they wore rags and chainmail. Like so it's like sucks, but like that's what it does.
Yeah, and there's like leathers and stuff like that. And what I will say I really did like is like there's many times in the movie where you'll see like one person roll up with like their bannerman, you know what I mean? And like they don't necessarily all wear the same colors and stuff like that because it would make sense because they're all from different houses. Because like you're basically going around Scotland trying to basically the only people that have like one entire like
well, that's the point. They're not unified now,
yeah,
so
but
they're all like
homogenous armor are the English because they're one huge force. Yeah. Whereas Scotland's like a bunch of houses. They're all trying to kind of come together to build an army that can fight England. You know?
Right.
I'll say this also. Did you guys notice in the beginning? I thought it was going to be one of those movies where it looks like it's one continuous shot.
Oh my god!
There
was
the beginning, really long shot. It was probably a few minutes long.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of action in it, a lot of like choreograph
in the very beginning
dialogue. It was very active, and I was like shocked that they did that. And it got me excited. I was like, oh, like the production value looks cheap, but it looks like it's going to be done well. So it got me excited. And I do think that this movie did some things really well.
Yeah.
And
I think I tip my hat to that director because I was looking it up. It doesn't look like he has like a huge backlog, and I think that's a thing for Netflix movies that we're seeing is these lower tier. It's like new directors or they haven't directed much. So like hats off to him for like taking a shot and doing like it was a good long scene, like one long shot. Obviously they take breaks, but that's a hard thing to do.
No, and
and directors are praised for being able to do that. Like what's his face with Gravity and it's just
the
like
guy who did Birdman. That was amazing.
Birdman,
yeah. Only
so
7
it's
cuts
like
or something.
Very impressive. But then he kind of like dropped that shtick, which is fine because I was personally like, does that really fit this movie? Like, does it like I know that style choice did it, and that was my thought. Was like, does this make sense that he's doing this? But then he drops it, so it was cool that he did that in the beginning and then let it go. Mm-hmm. But I got some more to talk about. More spoilery, I guess, that aren't really first reactions. So do we want to do play or keep scrolling?
Play. Yeah.
I'm hesitant on this one. I'm going to start with the keep scrolling, but I feel like my mind might change.
I'm going play too.
Trust me, I really want to press play on one of our movies because I feel like I've only pressed play on one movie this season. But
Joey's just a hater.
I'm not going to just be like, oh, just because I want to watch a movie, I'm going to press play.
Right.
This one might be able to convince me, but my first reactions, I'm going to say I would keep scrolling.
I'm pressing play, especially if you like Timepiece or like Braveheart or like stuff like that. Like it's an interesting story, especially if you don't know the continued story, right? Kind of like I said, like you kind of learn a little bit more about that history that you get kind of involved in with Braveheart. So yeah, I'd hit play for sure. But stick around for the full in-depth review. We're going to take a quick commercial break and we will be right back.